Welcome to part two of our conversation with Laura Morgan. Let's jump back into it. So I'm going to pull this apart just because I think you went through it really quick and I don't know if anybody picked it up. You started with, is it okay if I share this feedback with you? And that's a powerful thing, asking for permission. For everybody listening, can you share more about like why that's so powerful, more powerful than just a quick throwaway line?
Yeah, absolutely. It sets up a different dynamic. And it is asking the person, are they ready to receive what you're sharing with them? Are they in a space that they can even have that conversation? And it might be that particular leader, person with more power, manager, maybe they're not in a space to hear it. Maybe it's not a great day. Maybe fill in the blank of any of the things. Maybe you have 5 minutes left in your meeting and like now's not the time to unpack something. However, would say good managers and leaders, even if they don't have the time to dig into it right then, would say, you know what, let's schedule more time when we can actually go through this and give it the time and space that it needs.
And I also love to thank the person for being part of the conversation with me right away. That's the
Yes.
first thing I like to say to just reduce that power dynamic and also imply if they have less power than me, that they have a choice to be in that situation. What are your go-tos in opening conversations that can help put the person not on the defensive as much?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one part of it. So the asking permission, I think, also laying out what it is that you want to talk about and why. So big fan of agendas. I don't like springing things on people. I don't like when people spring things on me.
Not that we need to talk.
Yeah. It's, let people prepare and like let them decide like, hey, I think we need to touch base about this. I'm scheduling time, for this day and time. So like I will often do that before I throw meetings on calendars. I'll send someone a quick message like, hey, here's what this is and why. Maybe it's the HR function, but I find when I put catch up on someone's calendar and don't explain what it is, there's maybe a connotation that it might be something negative. And, that's certainly not, I don't want anyone stressed out or feeling like, what should I be prepared for? What do I need to bring? Or do I need to have this list deck or what have you?
You've talked a little bit, so we talked about how to open the conversation. What would you recommend for somebody that they say, I'm afraid I'm going to get nervous and I'm going to forget what I want to say? Or they are worried about getting triggered and then forgetting?
Yeah, practicing what you want to say. So I had started with that, permission, shared goal, situation, behavior, impact, and then that request and curiosity. Like, what are you trying to get out of this? Like, what is the thing that, you want to do moving forward? So, I think that clarity is helpful.
Would you recommend somebody even records themselves or has it in writing in front of them?
Writing in front of, for sure. Yes. So there's that preparation piece, what you want to say, how you want it to land. Also the emotional piece. So making sure that you're in a good space. So if you're going into a difficult conversation, ensuring you're as grounded and present as you can be. So that, and also thinking about what could this person throw at me that, what can I possibly prepare for? I am a big person on preparing for all of the things to the extent that you can. And then you feel comfortable, you feel more comfortable if something comes up or the conversation goes in a different direction than you expected it to. You kind of prepared for that. But yes, definitely practicing it, recording yourself. Anytime you hear yourself in a recording, you're like, is that what I sound like? Or is that what I look like when I'm, presenting something? So it can be very humbling, but also really helpful and, good feedback for you. And then you feel more confident going into a particular conversation, presentation, discussion, etc.
Imagine how we feel listening to ourselves every week on this podcast.
You guys sound great. You're well practiced. I don't know what you're talking about.
You sound great too. Laura, let's stop mucking about. Let's really get down into it and talk. Let's do some rapid fire scenarios with you. I get asked a lot about these kind of scenarios a lot when I present or talk about this stuff. So let's throw you some scenarios and talk us through how you would handle it and how you would recommend other people handle it. So first situation, what do you do if somebody starts yelling at you? they're really angry, they start yelling at you, swearing at you?
So starting with a place of grounding and taking a deep breath before you jump into anything or any sort of response. One of the things that I like to say is like, I can't understand you when you're speaking that loudly, when you're speaking that way, when you're using that tone, when you're and that comes back to my days as a therapist. I use that a lot with the kids that I worked with. I can't understand you when this is happening, or, hey, can we take this down a little bit? And then that's also calling out the behavior. Hey, I notice you're really upset. Do you need to take a minute? Do we need, can we do some grounding exercises? Can we breathe a little bit? Or do you want to take some space and come back?
So you'll introduce grounding activities to them in the moment.
I will. Absolutely.
Oh, that's great. That's
if
awesome.
possible, and have given them to leaders as well. Just some basic breathing techniques, or feeling your feet on the floor and where you are in time and space. So there's very easy, tangible things you can do that don't have to be long meditation sessions or anything like that.
Love that. Okay. What if somebody starts crying in front of you? You're trying to give them some hard feedback or give them a warning and they start crying.
Always have tissues in your office. That is rule number one. Or anytime you are having a difficult conversation in a conference room, make sure there's tissues. I had an old manager that said that to me. It's basic. It is a basic need, but it's helpful. Recognizing that. Hey, it looks like you're upset. What's happening for you right now? Should we pause? Should we revisit? Do you want to talk about this a little bit more? What's landing with you? So just back to that, recognizing the behavior, and also just when your energy is grounded and level and you're listening to the person and they can hear that you're listening to them and sitting with them, and that calmness, that mirror neuron effect, can help with bringing things down. It's not fail-proof. It's not perfect, but, does tend to bring things down into a place that, do you feel comfortable continuing? Is there something else going on that we should talk about? What else should I know? I think that curiosity piece is really important as well.
I love that. And, sorry, just real fast. You mentioned mirror neurons. Can you just explain what it is for the listeners? Because they may not know what that is.
That is, so when I am calm and, the neurons in my body are, firing and calm and, in a space that there's that good energy that you feel. So if you sit down with someone that has that good energy, or, you really kind of pick up on their vibe and you're like, wow, that's like mirror neurons. So it's, whether it's bringing things down and into a more grounded space, or, maybe a more excited, hey, we're, launching this new thing, let's go. It's that reflective piece that can be really helpful.
Love that. This is the science part of our podcast, the art and science of difficult conversations. Right. Lucy, sorry, you were going to ask something.
I'm getting excited too about this topic. Follow-up question on when somebody is crying. What if it seems that anytime, let's say, the manager wants to give them feedback, they start crying, and it almost seems they're using it as a technique to deflect and prevent from them receiving the feedback and therefore them being accountable?
I would call that out. Hey, it seems like the last 2 or 3 times we've tried to have this conversation, it hasn't gone well, and it's resulted in you end up in tears. We can't continue the conversation. We don't get to a good place of feedback. Can you tell me, is there a better way for us to do this? Is there a better way for you to hear this and receive this? Would it be better if I gave you the feedback in writing and then we discussed it? So I think giving the person some other options, but back to calling out those behaviors. That's not a feeling. That's a fact. What you're seeing in front of you, that's a fact, that's data that you can then work with and acknowledge, and then find out what's happening there and see if that person will open up a little bit more and say, well, this is my reaction because, or, I really don't want to have this conversation because I have this fear that you're going to fire me, or, whatever that, underlying fear might be. And if you can get to that, you can get to a better working place.
Along the same lines, what about if every time you keep talking to them, they keep bringing up things that happened 10 years ago before you even started? Well, 10 years ago, it wasn't like this and blah, 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 this and that. And every time it just keeps going back to how things used to be and complaining about that stuff.
Thanks so much for sharing that with me. I really appreciate the context and the history, and that helps me understand maybe how things functioned differently before I arrived, which informs, how we do things moving forward. However, as we discussed, my approach is a little bit different. And, here's how I like to approach and think about things. And, tell me how that feels for you. Like what do you like? What do you not like? What feedback do you have? So I think that, historical piece is always important. However, I'm very forward looking. So, you have to have a good foundation, right? For anything really, but, looking forward to what you want to achieve in the future, and what got you here won't get you there kind of mentality that, that historical approach, way of doing things, data, any of those pieces got the team, the organization, what have you, to where they are today, which is amazing and should be recognized and, celebrated to an extent. And then, like, what are we going to do to, the next however many employees, the next 10 years, the next, that sets us up for success.
Reaction comes to mind that might be trickier to spot. We can see people crying, we can see people getting upset. It's kind of loud, so we notice. What about people complaining? What about those people that have the freeze? They don't have the fight or flight, but they have the freeze reaction, and they just seem numb and they don't say anything.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's calling out another behavior. It might not be as loud or as noticeable, but if you have good enough connections with your people, you notice when they freeze, or when they pause, or when they're not saying as much, or when they get quiet, and you ask them about it and say, hey, what's happening right now? Or like, hey, what are you not telling me? What are you not sharing? What might you want to share with me that you haven't voiced? Or like, I haven't heard as much from you on this call, on this meeting, whatever. Would love to hear your perspective. And they might say like, nope, I have nothing to share. And then it's also checking in with them afterwards. Like, hey, what happened? So sometimes it's safe to call things out in a room, in a team setting, things like that. Sometimes it's not. And it's checking in with the person later and saying like, hey, are you okay? Like, what's happening? I noticed, this during our call. Is there anything that I can do, or is there anything that you need? So yeah.
I'm noticing you're asking many beautiful questions. And for those people that say, I don't know what to ask, I'm new to this, I was a tech expert before, now I am supposed to deal with people, I don't know what to ask them. What would be your guidance for them?
Yeah, I think it's simple. I want to understand what you're saying, or I want to understand what you're not saying, or I want to understand what this reaction is, or I want to, ensure that you feel like you're part of this team, or I want to ensure you feel success, or you're successful in your role. I think there's a number of questions you can ask that are similar to that are not necessarily super touchy-feely, but still helpful. So, back to like what you're noticing, or, just better check-in questions. Like, what was, tell me something that went really well this week. Tell me something you want to celebrate. Tell me something that didn't go as well. Or let's talk about a conversation that, a coaching conversation that you had, or like, so like giving a little bit more specific instead of like, hey, how are you? We've had that conversation before. Like, it's shallow. Like it doesn't, it's, people often say like, hey, how's it going? Or like, hey, how's your day? And they keep walking, and they don't pause and listen to what the person is saying, and then reflect back. So, hey, I heard you say this. Is this what you mean? Is this what you were thinking? Should we explore this a little bit more? So I think it's not just that initial question. It's all the kind of follow up and like sitting with people in the things when you need to.
I really appreciate when you use the phrase call out what's going on, and things like that. I think our connotation in this society, at least, is it's usually connotated with like a negative kind of approach. And I still appreciate how the way you're framing it, though, in reality is a more curious. You're just observing something, and you're not trying to imply that there's a negative intent. You just want to know why this is happening. And I think there's something really cool about that curiosity and being willing. That speaks to your, like, let's sit in these emotions together for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Laura, let's imagine somebody said, I don't care about part 1 of episodes. I only want to jump in at part 2. And they turned on this episode and they're like, you know what? I don't even care about the beginning of this episode. I just want to jump to this point right here. Assuming that they should also go back to listen to the entire thing. What are 1 to 2 big takeaways you hope that they walk away with?
Oh, goodness. Okay. So I would say pausing and using that as a tool that you have. You are not I have made the joke for years, but you're not duct taped to your chair or your desk. Like, get up and move around. So if
Mm,
you are feeling stuck or something is not landing with you, ask for more time, ask for space. If you're in the middle of a conversation or in a group setting, like, hey, I'd really like to pick this up later. That acknowledging and, as I said, calling out behaviors, but in a positive way. So, what's happening right now? I notice that you are frustrated. You seem angry. You seem upset. Like, what's happening here? And asking those really good questions to open up additional dialogue. I said that pause with that, like really slowing down and like slow something down in your body as well. So whether that is your breath, your speech, your physical body, helps bring things down as well into a place that's a little
yeah.
bit more manageable for you and the other person. And that
Yeah.
mirroring of emotions and feelings.
I love that. So awesome. And so, yes, go back and listen to the rest of it if you haven't. And if you have, go back and listen again. Get our numbers up. Either way is okay. Laura, it's been so great to learn from you and to hear your approaches and sharing your wisdom and experience with everybody. How can people follow your work or get in contact with you if they wanted to just learn more or just talk more about this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. Would love to hear from you. If you want to find me on LinkedIn, feel free. I'm very searchable, so feel free to find me on LinkedIn. And then I guess one thing I would just close it with is, difficult conversations don't require us to be fearless. They require us to be present. So when leaders learn to work with emotions instead of around them, conversations stop being something to survive and start becoming something that actually moves people forward.
That's quotable right there.
Totally.
Boom. That's a great one. Lucy, what do you got going on for the people if they want to find you?
If people want to find me, yes, they can find me on LinkedIn, but no promises I'm going to respond in a timely manner. Just disclaimer right there, sorry. It's still behind. So you can find me on my website. And if you're curious about what are some different emotional triggers and what might help you to regulate your emotions better and kind of improve that self-awareness muscle that Laura was talking about, you can take a saboteur assessment on mindfittery.com/be free. So you can be free from your inner sabotage and from those triggers that get in the way of your conversations. What about you, Chris? What would you like people to know?
I would say two things. Number one of my goals for 2026 is to win the lottery. So if anybody has the winning numbers to Powerball or Mega Millions, please share your knowledge with me. This is my year. I'm feeling it. I think I can do it. Just gotta believe in myself. Number two, I said I work on ending accidental leadership. That's because we provide internal leadership development programs for teams. If you are interested, go to myleadershippotential.com. Check out a case study of an organization I worked with where we just turned their entire leadership team around, create a high performing culture, and got people to just feel more confident in their work. So check that out, learn more. Connect with me otherwise. And Laura, thank you so much for being here today.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.